Hey there, everyone. It's Dave Barnett. Uh, just killing some time here, so I thought I would take a few moments and tell you a story. Um, this happened last fall, and I got a phone call from initial contact was an email. I got an email from a guy who was looking to borrow some money. He owned a small trucking company. I think he had about 10 trucks on the road or so, and he had some long-term contracts, some of which went back 20 years. So a history of knowing how to operate that type of business. And he was looking for some money because he had some trucks coming back off lease that needed to have some updates and some repairs and some refits and whatnot. And he was looking for some money. He wanted to offer some trucks that he owned as collateral. So at the time, I didn't have $75,000 available. I had made a commitment to a business partner to gather some capital to make an investment that we were planning to do. And so my funds were committed, and I knew that if I was going to do the deal, I would end up having to broker other people's money. And I didn't want to have to do that unless I knew that it was going to be a lucrative deal. So I sent him an email saying what I was going to be looking for as far as documentation, and I told him the terms of the loan. I said for $75,000, it's going to have to be paid back over 2 years. I'm going to have to charge you 19% interest, and I'm going to have to charge you a 5% lender's fee, which means that the loan amount is grossed up 5% from day one. And I said that I was going to have to charge him a broker's fee for doing the work to put the deal together, and I was going to charge him $2,000. So I did the math and gave him a sample payment, and I believe it was close to $3,700 a month. I asked him if that was going to be acceptable, and he said yes, because the lease payments on the three trucks were about $5,000 each per month. So he was looking at having his payments go from $15,000 down to $3,700, and he figured if he could do some work on the trucks and keep them on the road for 2 more years, that would be very good for him. Apparently, right now, the modern highway tractors, there's some issue with the technology that makes them meet certain emission standards. The technology sometimes fails and makes the trucks very difficult to maintain, very costly to maintain. So he wanted these older trucks because they predate this modern emission standard technology. And he figured it was going to take 2 years before the manufacturers had this stuff sorted out, and the new trucks were going to be able to operate with this new technology and not have the maintenance issues. So his story made sense. And the reason he was calling me is because he had gone through a personal financial crisis and wasn't a what we call a bankable person. He wasn't able to go to the bank. So I asked for financial statements, I asked for copies of his tax return, current accounts receivable, accounts payable lists, and looked through, and you know, it was going to cash flow, it was going to be okay. So I also asked him for copies of the vehicle registrations and appraisals on the three trucks. He sent me appraisals on the three trucks, and the range in value of all three of them together is conservatively going to be about 125 grand. More liberally could range up to 150. So I thought the collateral was good for a $75,000 loan. So I called three of my private loan buddies and I said, this would be a good deal, maybe on a three-way split. Each of you put in 25 grand. It's a good rate of return. We had dinner together. I went through the paperwork, showed them how it made sense, and everyone agreed that it was a good deal. So I got back to him and said, yeah, it looks like I've got commitment from people who are going to finance it. I need the three registrations so the lawyer can start to do his paperwork. And he said, yeah, I'll get them to you. So I got the three checks from the investors, all made out to the lawyer in trust. We deposited the money into the lawyer's trust account, and I called him again looking for the three registrations. And then a week went by, and I emailed them, and I called them, and I wasn't getting any response. And another week went by, and I called them, and I emailed them, and I wasn't getting any response. Finally, I called his accountant, the one who had emailed me the tax return and the financial information. And I said, what's the deal with this? And he said, well, as far as he knew, there was an issue with the titles relating to the lease financing that had been on them before. So what I assumed, because I've run into this before, is that at the end of the leases, the lease company will send documentation to you so that you can get the titles changed from the leasing company's name into your own company. And I guessed that he hadn't done it and misplaced the paperwork and was waiting for something from the leasing company to try to sort this out. But the fact that he wasn't returning my calls gave me a great deal of concern, because in my experience, no communication is a very bad sign. I'm more than happy to work with people even if they're behind on their payments, if they're open and communicating with me all the time. But this guy, he wasn't, didn't seem as open, so I had a few issues with that. A couple more weeks went by. I sent him a few more emails, a few more phone calls. Someone told me he was in Alberta. When I called the reception of his company, it was getting close to Christmas time, so I figured things were slow because of that. And eventually I said, you know what, I can't do business with someone like this. So I just pulled the plug, called the lawyer, asked him to write the 3 checks back to the investors for $25,000 apiece. He did so, and I returned the money. About 2 weeks after Christmas, I get another call from the guy. He says, okay, are we ready to go? I need you to write out the check for the money. And I said, well, no. I said, you didn't give me the registration slips. The lawyer wasn't able to complete the documentation. We couldn't register security. There's a whole process here that we have to go through. And that's when he finally told me that he didn't own the 3 trucks. They actually belonged to his brother. And he had a deal with his brother that he had been paying the lease payments on them, and was able to use them in his company. But they weren't his. And he had spent a month over Christmas trying to convince his brother to allow him to put up the trucks as collateral, because he knew that as soon as he sent me the registrations, I would understand that he didn't in fact own them. So this is why it's so important to have a process in place to know what you're doing and know what paperwork needs to be put in place. I talk about this type of stuff and how to do financing deals on equipment in my book, Invest Local, which is available from the blog site, investlocalbook.com, and off of Amazon as well for both softcover and Kindle. Additionally, on my blog site, investlocalbook.com, there's a download you can do. It's 15 of my business finance articles that were published in End Business magazine a few years ago. That's free. When you click to download, it asks for credit card information, but if you put a 0 in the price box, the credit card spaces will disappear. It is a free download for the 15 business articles. You can also buy my book as a PDF from the blog site. So that was a deal that wasn't a deal. I was disappointed that I'd done a bunch of work and didn't get my broker fee, but I was also very happy that I didn't lead my friends into a bad deal where they were going to lose their money. And of course, I always try to treat my friends' money as though it were my own. That's how you keep your friends. Anyway, keep tuning in for more stories, and don't forget to buy my book, and have a great day.